All right, so what is shadow IT? You see, so shadow IT, the government, they've been contacting this alternate dimension, right? So they feed the IT through the alternate.
No, what are you doing? You're good. Hi. Okay. No, shadow IT. It's a term given to IT resources, hardware, software, subscription services in this dimension, but they're used by an organization without the knowledge of whoever's handling IT or cybersecurity for the organization. Now, keep in mind, shadow IT isn't necessarily evil or destructive. Well, honestly, you don't know what it is, and that's the problem. You don't know if it's productive, or if it's secure, if it's worth the money, if it's legal. The most common form of shadow IT is probably where employees go and subscribe to cloud services and use those services to do their job. For years, the poster child for this would have been file sharing apps like Dropbox. Employees would create accounts for themselves, whether personal or business, and use them to share company files and information with other folks or access data from home. Was this data secure, backed up, shared properly, encrypted? To all these questions, the answer is we don't know. So, how common is shadow IT? My suspicion is most small to medium organizations have some form of shadow IT, especially if the organization hasn't done anything to control it or monitor it. So, why is shadow IT popular? Well, honestly, most shadow IT purchases were probably made with the best of intentions. People, giving them the credit of the doubt, simply couldn't do their job without these tools at their disposal. IT was too slow in coming up with alternative solutions, not alternative dimensions, or were never asked. So these folks went ahead and solved the problem themselves. And since the company didn't have specific policies prohibiting this sort of thing, is shadow IT dangerous? Let's see, your corporate data is being accessed and shared with, well, you don't know who, by untrained employees using applications that you don't know are secure. Or unknown applications are being installed on company computers. Yeah, I'd say there's just a teeny tiny chance that there's a risk here. And all the steps you've taken to make your organization more secure, multi-factor authentication, encryption, multiple backup strategies, odds are your shadow IT at best doesn't have these protections, and at worst actually compromises the protections for the rest of your organization. Sleep well tonight. So how do you deal with shadow IT? Actually, this is a pretty simple problem. Well, except for the implementation. That's where it gets to be fun. So step number 1, create a shadow IT policy for your organization. This can be the most difficult, but are employees allowed to do their jobs using hardware, software, or services that are non-sanctioned by either IT or security? If the answer is no, what process can they follow to request an app or a device? Remember, these folks are trying to do their job. For the most part. Step number 2, discover and analyze your shadow IT. There are a ton of tools out there to monitor and manage your network. They can also identify devices on your corporate network that weren't necessarily invited. This won't identify everything, especially cloud services, but it's a start. And there are several tools, for example, Defender for Microsoft 365, that include resources to identify and control cloud apps. Step number 3, manage your shadow IT. Here's where the fun really takes place. Now, we've set up the policy in step 1, and we've identified what shadow IT resources are out there in step 2. Now we need to decide what to do with the discovered shadow IT resources. We're not including whether there should be any disciplinary actions against the employee. That's up to you. But your options here are 1, remove the resource. This is a resource that should not be in use for any number of reasons. Inform the employee what's happening and why, and then remove it. 2 is remove the resource and replace it. This is a resource that actually has a more appropriate solution, i.e. don't use Dropbox when you already have Microsoft 365. Inform and train the employee. And 3 is implement the resource. This is where the resource is good, is appropriate, but it just wasn't implemented properly. Bring it out of the shadows. This might require a different licensing and configuration change, training, but move forward with that. So the bottom line is shadow IT can be a significant security risk. It can be an unnecessary expense. It can also be very productive. It can be a great idea, but implemented poorly. But if it stays in the shadows, how are you going to know? Huh?